coming in with a fresh face today because I'm gonna get ready and I'm gonna talk about some of the things, some of the choices that I have made throughout my life, financial choices for me that have had the best positive impact on my private finance. I've seen so many videos lately about private finance and about the economy right now. So I'm not gonna be talking about, oh, look into your 401k, remember to, invest in the stock market. I'm not gonna talk about those things. I'm gonna talk about 5 different choices that I made for myself throughout my life. I'm now 42 years old, that made the biggest impact on why at this point in my life I don't worry too much about money, and the choices that I've made for myself that I think have most positively affected me and my husband's finances, where we are right now. And I just want to talk about why I made these choices, how I made these choices, and maybe this will spark something for you as well, or maybe you would recognize yourself in some of these thoughts as well. I do come into this maybe with a different mindset than I know big portion of my audience, because again, I am Swedish. I've lived most of my life in Sweden. I lived 4 years in the US. So I was definitely able to, work and live and spend in the US, and I'm back in the EU now, living in Italy. So I'm gonna get ready. I do have some products here. There's some new products, there's some oldies, but goodies. But I'm not gonna be talking that much about the products in this video, but I will be talking a little bit about skin prep, because we all know skin prep makes the makeup look so much better and last so much longer. And especially during the summer, sun, sweat, heat can really mess with your skin and mess with your makeup. And I'm so excited to have Horror Wonder back on my channel to sponsor another video. I love these products and I've been talking about them quite a lot. These are part of my skincare routine and I use these several times a week because they work so well for me, especially during the summer. It is warm, it is sweaty, it is humid, and my skin is just acting up in all kinds of ways. Like I said, I'm 42 years old, so I definitely need hydration, but I also have oily combo skin, so I can't have things being too greasy or heavy on my skin, because A, I will break out, and B, the makeup will just slide off my face, especially right now when it's so sunny and warm and humid. The makeup's just gonna slide off my skin, just whoosh, straight off. Horror Wonder is a Korean skincare brand that's been one of my favorites for years. I've gone through several of their products and they are now available at Target. I will link them down below, so definitely don't forget to check them out. So this is the Black Rice Probiotic Barrier Essence, and this is a milky essence that comes out milky like this. It is a beautiful moisturizing essence that just sinks into the skin very quickly. It leaves your skin looking glowy, feeling moisturized, but not greasy, so that your makeup can go on beautifully without it just sliding off throughout the day. I love this essence and I use it so many times a week. I think it is beautiful. It is beautiful at nighttime. It is beautiful in the morning time, just before makeup, for a little bit of extra hydration. I've been using this one so much. This essence has probiotics and ceramides to moisturize your skin, protect your skin barrier, and improve your skin's texture and tone over time. Absolutely love this one. It's a favorite. And then comes the mist. This is the Probiotics Barrier 2% NID plus Serum Mist. Shake it to activate it. Shake, shake, shake. You can use it as part of your skincare routine, which I do. You can use it before makeup, which I also do, or you can use it after makeup to set down your powders and elongate your makeup. The spray also has ceramides and probiotics to moisturize your skin without leaving it greasy, and also to help with skin tone and texture. It also has 2% NID+, which also helps improve the skin glow, firmness, and fine lines. This spray also has that slightly milky texture. Again, it just gives you a lot of hydration and glow without being greasy. Again, my skin is combo oily. I need moisture and plumpness, but I cannot do too much dewiness or greasiness because my makeup is just bye-bye. So again, thank you so much, Horror Wonder, for coming back and sponsoring another video on my channel. I am such a big fan of this skincare brand. It is a big part of my skincare routine, and I'm so excited to be talking about them here again with you. So don't forget to check them out in the top of the description box. But now let's jump into the makeup. Skin's already prepped. Let's do some foundation. I would say this first one is probably the one that has shaped the financials of my marriage the most, and that is that me and my husband had a very affordable wedding. We had a small wedding and it did not cost much. I would say that our wedding, all in all, everything included, was probably less than $3,000, maybe even $2,000. We did not spend a lot of money on the wedding, but what I wanted was a marriage, not a wedding. And I didn't have a lot of money to spend on a wedding. And also, B, I didn't want to spend all the money that I did have on a wedding. I know people say it is the most important day of your life, but I'm telling you right now, as someone who's had 2 wedding days, let me tell you right now, that is simply not the case. This will not be the most important day of your life. You will have many more, or you should have many more days that will be more special and more memorable. Do you know how often I think about my wedding? Once a year. And I don't mean that in a like the day wasn't important or I didn't have a great day. Every time I think about my wedding, I think about how great it was, how perfect it was, how small it was, how intimate it was. But if you go into debt for a wedding, which a lot of people seem to do right now, we're in the social media era of weddings where I feel like a lot of things that are done for weddings right now are done for show, to get likes, to get a reel, to get a video, to show people that you don't know and never will meet how great your wedding is, how wonderful your wedding day is, and how amazing and special your wedding day is. We're trying to almost one-up people that we don't know, don't like, and never will meet. It doesn't matter. Even if you get a viral wedding, what is that? That's 1 week of likes. That's not enough for a marriage. And the reason why I only think about my wedding day, I think about my marriage all the time. Listen, I'm still with the guy. He's literally in the room next to me. Is because I didn't go into debt. The wedding was over. I had no money to pay off. I didn't have a bigger wedding than I could save up for or spend in the moment. We had a buffet. It was lovely. We were only 50 people. I understand some people want to be more, and that's perfectly fine. I mean, we spent very little also because we had very few guests. We only had friends and immediate family. We had a buffet. I did have a cake, but it wasn't like a fancy, super schmancy. That's not what we did. I bought my dress online. I did not have a fancy wedding dress. We got married outdoors. We rented a very, very affordable venue that also had hotel rooms where some guests could stay over. I didn't have fancy flowers. We didn't have a DJ. Ricardo just borrowed some speakers and we had like just a random dance floor. We had some boxes of wine and we had a great day with our friends and family. And when I think back of it, I think of how amazing it was. But if you have a very expensive wedding that it's outside of your budget, you might go into debt. You will think about that wedding in a negative way every month when you're paying your bills, because you will see that debt showing up every month for years. Some people's wedding debt lasts longer than their marriage. And the biggest reason for people getting a divorce right now is because of fighting about money. Don't let an expensive wedding be that. And even if you have saved up for it, do you really want to spend all of that money? Some people spend tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars on a wedding on one day. You could set yourself up for the rest of your life. A deposit on a house, deposit on an apartment. Maybe you and your partner could travel and learn a lot of things together, because I do think you learn a lot of things from traveling. I'm just saying, I think unless you are filthy rich, I am talking not even 1%, but like 0.1%. Why are you watching me? Why are you here? I'm just saying, unless you are that, I really don't think that a big wedding is necessary. Also remember, all those like influencer weddings you're seeing, they're like super fancy and super expensive. They look so great. I'm gonna tell you a secret. Most of them didn't pay for that. Brands pay for that in exchange for a tag and a mention, and some people will admit that it's sponsored and some won't. And all of a sudden, they got free flowers. They got free catering. They got a free venue because the people know that if they get tagged in a super, super expensive and extravagant wedding by an influencer, it's going to lead to them getting more bookings after. If that post goes viral, other people are going to see that and be like, oh, I want that too. And again, that's what I'm saying. We're trying to one up people we don't even know and we don't even care about. Why are we trying to do that? So I'm telling you right now, having a very affordable wedding that I never think back of since in a negative way, because it was just what I could afford at the time, and I'm very happy. And even if I redid it again, I would still not have a big fancy wedding. Even though I could afford something more fancy today, I still wouldn't do it, because like, what's the point? Again, a party is fine, but you don't have to have the biggest, most extravagant party in the world. It's only for you, your partner, your family, your friends. You don't need to impress people who didn't even attend. I'm not a car girl. I don't care about cars. I don't care what we're driving. I don't even like driving. If I can be a passenger princess, best believe I'm gonna be a passenger princess. I do not care. But because of this, I think I have saved a lot of money on just seeing a car as a transportation and just getting what I needed to get around and not caring whether or not this was making me look good. I don't care. When I was in the US, I had a Toyota. What do I care? It fit everything we needed. It was a hybrid, and it was a car that was within our budget. And this is also like, when we talk about things that are within our budget, I think, again, I'm going to talk about this again when it comes to another point, but I think it's very important to not let the car dealership decide for you what you can and cannot afford. Because we definitely could have had a car that had a bigger monthly payment. But that is a monthly payment that you're doing for a really long time. A car that you can afford is a car that you're going to pay off before you will want a new one. If you look at that term and you look at those numbers and you think, I'm going to want a new car before I can pay this one off, that is not a car you can afford. That car is out of your budget. Me, I don't care about cars at all. Like, I don't exchange a car. We paid off the car in the US. The only reason we sold it is because we moved. It would be very inconvenient to bring the car from the US to Europe. It's possible, but very inconvenient and very expensive. So we sold that car, and the money we got from the car, we bought a car here. We could have bought a fancier car, but why? We bought a car, cash bought a car, and now we have that car. This car is older than the car we had in the US, probably less fancy, but who cares? Remember, these car dealerships, they are not selling you a car. They're selling you a loan. They are not in the business of getting you a car. They are in the business of selling you a loan. That's what they're in the business. They're in the business of getting you a loan for your car. That's how they're making their money. And I think that is something that's very important to remember when we're buying cars. And I think for me, it's been one of my better financial decisions. It's not letting my income decide what kind of car I should have, because like, who cares what kind of car I drive? The car that I can afford is the car that I pay off before I buy a new one. That's the car for me. It was the same when I bought a house. So we did buy a house when we lived in Texas, technically still own this house. And I did not let the bank decide for me. Oh, look at this pen. I'm always so impressed by this pen. I did not let the bank decide for me how much of a house I could afford to buy. Don't let the car dealership or the bank determine how much you can afford to borrow. You know what your budget can like withstand, what you can afford, what you can fit into your budget. Because if I would have listened to the bank, I would have bought a very fancy house in Texas. But I didn't need that, and I didn't want that. The house we ended up buying made our monthly cost with HOA, mortgage, and of course like taxes, it made it the same, even actually a little bit less than when we were renting. And with that being said, I was in a very unique position where I was able to do a pretty big down payment on my house. But that's not the part that's important. The part is that I didn't listen to the bank. They don't get to tell me how much money I can afford, how much money, how much house I should be buying. Maybe you can afford a house that's several thousands a month. But honestly, do you need that? Do you need that much house? And it's the same here. The kind of house that you can afford is the kind of house where you can still keep the kind of lifestyle that you want to have. And I'm not even saying to avoid being house poor. If the lifestyle you have now is going out to eat maybe once or twice a month, being able to go to the movies and going on vacation maybe once a year, if you buy a house that is so much more expensive than what you're paying right now for housing, and you have to change your lifestyle to be able to afford to live there, is that the point? Or are you going to be vacationing in your backyard? I know a lot of people will be like, oh, we bought this house, so now we can't do these other things, and we're just going to have to be happy and until we pay off part. This is a 30-year loan. You are binding yourself up for 30 years, unless you're paying it out quicker, to have a lesser lifestyle. Is the house worth that? Trust me when I say you would be much happier in a house that you feel like you actually will be able to, pay off. And the process of paying it off will not feel like a punishment, like you are putting everything else in your life on hold for this. Do you need those extra bedrooms? Do you need to live in that specific neighborhood? I think it's very important, again, to not let others tell us what we can afford, because I think especially, and I noticed this a lot when I was living in the US, and I'm sure it's probably the same here as well, financial institutions or banks or car dealerships, they will tell us that we can afford more than we actually comfortably can afford. Because it's not about you putting all your bills together and realizing that yes, my income each month can cover this. It's about realizing that there's no give in this budget. There's no money left for spontaneous things or emergencies or saving extra or even paying off things quicker. What you can afford and what you can comfortably afford are two different things. So for me, I was very happy buying a house because I paid the same as I did when I was renting. And that meant that I could comfortably, for my situation, pay that mortgage each month. But that doesn't mean that the bank didn't tell me, you can borrow a lot more if you want to. But I didn't want to. And that's one of the best financial decisions I've ever made, especially now that I'm here and I still have this house. I'm going to use a liquid blush. I'm going to go in with a little bit more of the Hara Hara spray because, again, it sets down the powders a bit. It's going to be beautiful to make the makeup look even better, even longer. So you can tell it doesn't look greasy or oily. The spritzer is really beautiful, and I'm gonna go in with a liquid blush. So this overall takes me into, for me, what has worked good for me. And again, this all comes down to, this is very personal. This all comes down to what kind of life you're living and the kind of situation. But for me, there's been several times in my life where my income has made a jump. I used to work in the restaurant business and I was definitely not making good money in the restaurant business. At least I wasn't. And sometimes there will be tips and stuff, but again, in Sweden, tips isn't really a thing like that. I made an income, I was able to pay my bills, but I definitely was not making good money. After I finished university, I got a job and I was definitely making much better money. And after that, in 2020, I did pursue content creating full time because my husband and I was planning to move abroad and I wasn't able to continue doing my office job abroad. So I started pursuing online creating and ended up making more money there than I did in my office job. I know I've talked about this before. So these were the different times in my life where I had a kind of a significant jump in income. And when you have a jump in income, I think everybody to some extent is gonna have a little bit of a lifestyle creep. I think it's just the name of the game. I just think that's what happens. And I definitely had that too. But I think one of the best decisions for me when it comes to my private finances was that I was very careful. I was very careful to not spend more than came in. Because again, I don't want to have a lifestyle creep where regardless of how much money I'm making, I'm always living paycheck to paycheck. The way of saying living paycheck to paycheck basically means that every month, regardless of how much money is coming in, you're always spending all of it. And I've seen this with quite a lot of people in the content creator sphere that for one reason or another, started making more money than they used to, and then they just spend it all. Every month, spend all of it. And I think for me, one of the biggest financial, best decisions I did for myself, and it's probably because I was in my 30s when this happened to me the last time, is that I realized this is a phase. And even if it isn't a phase, I don't want to spend all the money that's coming in. I want to save. I want to buy a house. I want to be able to retire. I want to have like a kind of a buffer so that I don't have to worry if money dries out or if my husband loses a job or whatever might come my way. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm like, oh no, what am I gonna do now? So I think for me, one of the best financial decisions I made for myself is that I immediately realized there is more money coming in now than I am used to. And this could very easily turn into a situation where I end up spending money because you're like, wow, look at this money that's coming in. I should treat myself. And I am definitely team treat yourself. I am a person who will treat myself and celebrate little wins or celebrate, when you're traveling or buying yourself something special. But I never spend all the money that's coming in. Since my late 20s, since before I even had a YouTube channel, I was very, very cautious about spending everything that came in. I always made sure to never spend my entire paycheck. And I do realize that, again, this is a personal anecdote. I realize that this is not possible for everyone. I realize that there are plenty of people out there right now in this moment that are maybe in a situation where they're like, even if I only spend on the absolute necessities, the money is out. And I understand, and that's why I'm saying that this is very personal. But I don't mean this also as just a level of, don't buy designer bags or a Lamborghini. I also mean it in the small time things. Did you need to make that Amazon order? Do you need to have all the streaming services? Did you need to go on a vacation when you're spending every last penny you have saved to go? And I think that sometimes we just have to be like, treat yourself, but don't deplete yourself. Oh, I should put that on a t-shirt. And I'm not saying that to be like, oh, you can't, you can't have nice things, you can't have fun. You definitely can. But if you are spending every last dime and not all of it is necessities, I do think that you are gonna feel much better about yourself in the future if you do not spend every bit of money that comes in every month. And for me, I am very proud that I was able to break that cycle kind of quickly after I started making more money. Because again, I think I was like 20... No, actually, I was in my 30s. I was not late. It was before I started my YouTube channel. It was like a year before I started my YouTube channel. So maybe I was 30 when I got my first office job where I made a big jump in income. And I immediately realized I literally doubled my income. And I immediately sat down and had a talk with myself. And I was like, just because you doubled your income does not mean you get to double your expenses. And I think that's the talk that a lot of us need to have with income going up. Just because your income is doubled does not mean your expenses need to double. You are having probably, again, unless it is absolute necessities. But there have definitely been times in my life during these past 12 years where I have needed those extra money and it had felt incredibly good. I have felt very accomplished being able to immediately say yes, because I knew I had that money saved. I knew I could take my pets to emergency care. I knew that I could pay for my friend's plane ticket when she was going through a breakup. It felt good for me knowing that when times get rough, I do have the extra money to get me through that. And it can even be on a smaller level. You know, if your car breaks down, knowing that you have that extra little buffer where you can take your car to the shop right away without going into debt. I think that for me, it has been very helpful. With that being said, I know not everyone will have a point in their life when they do have a jump in income, but I still think it's very good to sit down and just look at your money and see where it's going. I'm not necessarily a person who does like a full-on budget. I know that works really good for some people, but for me, it was more like you can't spend all the money that's coming in. It's just not the way to go. And the last one is the one where I am coming in with a little bit more of a European perspective. And again, I know that this is probably a little bit of a hot take, and a lot of people will say, oh, but think about the benefits, think about the point system. And that is that I am not a big credit card person. And I say that because there is a reason why you get all of these points and all of these benefits on your credit card. And it is because most people spend more on the interest than you will ever get back on the point system. And if you do not pay off your credit card each month to its fullest, no paying minimal payment, you are not a credit card person, and you really should try and get yourself off relying on them. In Europe, it's not very common to use credit cards, and a lot of banks, if you're looking for a mortgage, might give you a lower mortgage if you have been approved for a lot of credit cards. I know in the US, it kind of shows your ability to pay for things. It's basically like if you are good with credit cards, I'm sure you're going to be good with a mortgage, which honestly, I don't think it's like a bad idea. I don't think that that's necessarily a weird way of thinking. In Europe, it's more like if you need to depend on credit cards, it kind of means that you are not good with just dealing with the money that you're given each month, like your debit card. So it kind of is instead viewed as you being not good with money. It's just a difference in viewpoints. And after living in the US for some years, I can see where they're coming from, but I will say going from just spending the money you have, or at least treating your credit card as a debit card, meaning that every time you spend on it, you pay it off instantly, not at the end of the month, not forgetting, not saving balance, because every time you do not pay off your full balance, whatever perks or points you would have gotten on that card is depleted. You've used it up, it is no longer valid, you might as well just have bought the plane ticket yourself. And I know that like credit card debt is a big thing in the US, but it's also becoming a thing here in Europe. And I do think that, again, because of the way the world is looking like now, we are having a really, really hard time, making our money stretch, not again just for things we want, but also for things we actually need. I do think that there is something to be had in the whole idea of treating your finances like you do not have a credit card. There is no extra money to be had. The money you have is the money you have. I'm just gonna deepen this up a little bit. I have been using the new Cosmic Beauty palette, but it does not have something that's like a black or something, so I'm just gonna deepen this up a little bit. And I realized that there is a lot of people who are really good at credit cards and that never hold the balance on them and always pay them off. I will say for me, since I moved to the US, we had to get a credit card to get some credit score to be able to, get a mortgage and get a house and all of that. And credit score determines a lot of things in the US that you don't think about until you're actually, there. But I always used it as a debit card, paying it off straight away because, again, I'm very European like that. I don't like having, an amount on my credit card. But I really implore you to start thinking of your credit card as either a debit card, like you have to pay it off straight away. And if you can't pay it off straight away, it can only be used for an emergency. I've used my credit card to take my vets to the ER or like the emergency, which again, I was able to pay it off straight away. But I think that stuff like that, definitely, if you're in an emergency and you need emergency funds, do it. it is what it is. But if you are using your credit card for other things than emergency, and you know that you're the kind of person who does not pay off your credit card balance every month, I really would suggest changing your lifestyle a little bit to avoid that, because I think that you are going to be so much better off in the long run. And that might lead to you missing some concerts, missing some opportunities. But in the long run, I think you're going to be really happy with that. Let me finish this look up and let me bring up a bonus, like a bonus thing that I'm really happy I did for my personal finances, which I say it as a bonus thing because, again, it's just such a... I don't know if it's a weird take. Maybe it's the best one. Maybe I saved the best for last. Okay, let's finish the look up with a couple more spritzes of the spray. I think everything turned out really great. Its skin is feeling moisturized, but it's not like greasy or glowy. It's been holding up really well. I've been filming for about an hour and a half and everything is holding up really, really well. My sixth and final like bonus point, and this is something that I understand that it's easy. In Sweden we say it's easy to be like, you know, oh, you say hindsight is 2020. It's easy to be wise after the fact. That's how we say it in Sweden. The partner that you choose to spend your life with, go through your life with, will probably more than anything else determine how your private finances will look. Not because of how much they make, how much you make, how much they spend, but having a shared goal and being able to, you know, sit down and have these discussions, or pulling in the same direction, or, you know, looking at spending and saving and what's important in life, looking at that similarly will make a big difference. Like my husband, he also doesn't care about having a great big house or having a fancy car or, you know, living this grand lifestyle. But we both think that traveling is very important, and knowing those things beforehand, before we start, you know, making big decisions or spending a lot of money, so we are not making big spending decisions in two different directions and ending up spending all the money, is very important. Of course, that's not always possible, but it is still important to have someone that you can discuss these things with. I mean, I've definitely have friends where their financial situation, even though they were two people making money, looked better after the fact, you know, when they were single again, than it looked with a partner. Even though the partner also made money, they still were in a better financial spot alone than with someone who made money. I'm not saying that's the fact for everyone, but I definitely want to point out that, of course, that is probably the best financial decision I ever made for myself, is having a partner that views money the same way that I view money. Which is, of course, you need to treat yourself, you need to have fun now, but you need to definitely think about the future. There's no point in spending all the money you have, because one day you will make less or make nothing at all being retired, and you definitely want to have some money for them too. All the products that I have on my face will be linked in the description box down below, together with, of course, Hara Wonder. Definitely check them out, especially now that they're available at Target. I will have them in the top of the description box down below so that you can check them out a little bit more. I'm so excited to have them back on my channel. Thank you so much for coming back and sponsoring another video. Thank you for being here and watching until the very end. I hope you're having a great day, and I will see you soon in a new video.